Well, hey everybody, it's Sandy and welcome back to my channel dedicated to helping you advocate for your own health, one topic at a time. So guys, today I have some follow-up on the Readimask. Yeah, so I did a video a couple weeks ago. It was a full review on the Readimask. I'm going to link that video here. Somebody had posted something about this mask, respirator I should say, because this is an N95 respirator, in the Sandy's DIY Health Advocacy Facebook groups page. And the founder reached out to me and just was so kind and very generous with his time and talked to me all about his product. They sent me several of these and I showed them in that review. I'll just let you go on over to that other video to see them. I got a lot of good questions about this product and I also got some pretty volatile feedback. So I think this warranted a second video, a follow-up video on some of those things. So first of all, one of the indictments that I got on this product was that the aesthetics were just awful. And, you know, I just want to just get this out of the way right away. Yeah, so I don't even factor that in when it comes to how I choose these masks and respirators. What I have found over this past year and a half, 2 years almost now, is that in my choosing things that will meet my criteria or check off the boxes of whatever we're looking for, a problem that we're trying to solve, my options turn out to be so few and so limiting that really how cute something looks, it just, honestly, it's never crossed my mind, and I don't see getting to the point where we have enough options that it ever will. So, you know, aesthetics is just not part of what this is about. It's not what these products are about in the first place, and I agree that the aesthetics of this is a little bit objectionable. I also think, though, that this is just so flexible that if you have like some extra, the problem is that when this gets put down on your face, you end up with this extra piece kind of dangling right here. If that really bothers you enough, you could put another, like a fabric mask over it, something with ear loops, and then there you go. But yeah, aesthetics is just, I mean, just don't bother because it's not something that I'm really going to throw into the mix. Now, a question did come up about what about eating and drinking if this is a single use, and can it be reused? It shouldn't be reused. It should be reused. And there was, you know, a little bit of controversy about that because some people had contacted the company themselves and were told that they could reuse this. So let me just clarify that for everybody once and for all. So I contacted the company as well after this discussion got started and said, hey, can you reconcile this information? And here's the answer I got. The short answer is this is technically a one-time use item because it is NIOSH approved N95 respirator, and by definition that means it's a one-time use. As a practical matter, the people within this company during the time that PPE was so scarce and it was very difficult to find polypropylene to make these things, right? Because all these big companies like 3M and everybody were buying up the polypropylene. And that's probably why I had so much trouble finding anything that met my criteria, because my criteria at the time, even for just a plain old fabric mask, included a layer of polypropylene in it. They happen to use these themselves over again and test them because they have the capacity to do this. And they said that they could use it several times. I believe they said up to 10 times, and it was still performing as it should. You know, I'll just go back to what I said, that technically any N95 NIOSH approved is a single use only, but I will go through the steps that I would take if I were you, if you plan to try to reuse this. And that is that, you know, these peel off, like this backing peels off like this. So this is not a full piece backing. The backing is a hollowed out rectangle, right? That's only covering where this silicone adhesive is. And by the way, this is some kind of a proprietary silicone adhesive that's very gentle on your skin, much different than most adhesives, even medical. So when you peel this thing off, if you were going to save it and put this back on the mask, it would be very difficult to get this lined up, right? Because at that point, this fabric has maybe been contorted or stretched a little bit to match the shape of your face. And it's just gonna be hard to get this thing on where you don't have any gaps and it's perfectly solidly sealed down. And the problem with that is that any area that is not completely covered has the opportunity then to dry out, and you'll have a leak in that spot where it's not sticking. So what I would do, and I believe what they did actually at that company, is I would get a piece of like parchment paper and I would stick that whole thing on here so that I could pound it flat and make sure that every single inch of the silicone adhesive is covered by that parchment paper, rather than trying to get this thing aligned exactly right the second, third, or fourth time. The other thing I would say is that if you want to try to use this more than one time, the good thing about this product is, unlike other respirators where a subtle leak might go unnoticed, this thing does not. you will feel exactly where any leak is, where there's any gap in that silicone seal, you'll feel like a coolness coming through, and it's really impossible to mistake. Certainly at the top, you will see fog in safety glasses and whatnot, but I had said that I had a tiny leak down here after reuse. I had reused it by reaffixing this piece here. I didn't have it all completely fixed down, and this part that comes together under the chin was not completely sealed again, and I could feel just the slightest bit of like air exchange through here. Now that said, I do wonder if it's still very competitive and still performing better than most respirators, because a leak that subtle I might not even feel in an N95 respirator that's adjusted with a head strap. I just have a sense that this thing is very effective. I think that I will probably start using it that way, depending on how long I've used it, where I've used it, and just be super careful with the fit test. But that's the official answer, and then the unofficial answer based on the testing that they did at the company with reusing these. If that's the case, then eating and drinking, there would be your answer. I think if I were going to take a drink, what I would actually rather do is just unpeel a piece of it, like the very bottom, you know, when you're wearing it and you can pull on this folded part. I think I would rather just do that and try to drink with a straw so that everything else isn't off, and see how that works first. Certainly drinking with a straw for a few seconds, you know, doesn't allow for the silicone adhesive to dry out. If I were going to have to sit down and have a meal, then I'd be inclined to use something like that parchment paper and, you know, have everything completely covered so I don't have to worry about missing a spot of this adhesive. Now, I think what I would do for the first few times, let's say you're going to work and you want to try that, have a backup mask or respirator with you, have a backup one of these with you in case that doesn't go as planned. And, you know, that's kind of something I do anyway when I'm doing something new, trying a new mask. I always have something else as a backup that's like my tried and true and it's ready to go. Speaking of that, I did run into one problem with this that I thought really warrants mentioning here. So another reason for my follow-up video. So I had to go to a meeting that was indoors, and it was just going to be very sparsely populated. They were kind to me and let me do it super early in the morning, so there was hardly going to be anybody there, but it was still indoors, and so I thought that would be a really good opportunity to use this, because this is an N95 and it'll be like 3 of us in a pretty large space, first thing in the morning. Everyone's vaccinated, but you know, who knows. I decided I was going to wear one of these, and I have used it already, so I didn't really think too much of it. And I brought it in my car, and I arrived there at the place, and I go to start putting this thing on, and I realized I can't get it to stick. Like I didn't even realize I couldn't get it to stick. I realized I had like some leaking here, because as I said, this is really easy to feel when you have a leak. But I thought, what in the world? Like, I've never had that with this. I've worn this now several times. I've been on the air, like talking about, you know, how great it is. And, you know, I realized very first thing in the morning, I always put on a lot of moisturizer, and I put on my sunscreen. And I talked about that actually on video about this, that if you're going to use some sunscreen, you know, you don't want to have anything that's at all emollient when you want to go put on something adhesive. So I did, before I left the house, put on a little bit of powder and stuff. Well, you know what? You don't put powder down under your chin, do you? So this was the first time that this stuff, I guess, wasn't as dried down as it is at some point later in the morning. And what was happening is it wasn't sticking right down under here. Now, I did have a backup something with me, and fortunately, I actually had a solution to it. So here's a solution if this happens to you. Most of us are carrying hand sanitizer these days. Kind of remembered back to, you know, there been lots of times where I'm in the operating room getting somebody ready to put them to sleep, and I'm putting the EKG monitors on and they won't stick. And it's because this is somebody who's slathered on moisturizer when they got out of the shower that morning. And I used to go just grab an alcohol prep out of a drawer, clean off an area, and put the EKG lead on. So hand sanitizer is basically like an alcohol prep, so I used a little bit of that under here. It's not great for sensitive skin. If you're the kind of person who feels like you need all kinds of moisturizer on first thing in the morning, probably not going to appreciate the alcohol, but you know, that does the trick. I waited a few seconds for that to dry, fanned it a little bit, put this thing back on, not this one, but the one I was using, and it worked just fine. But I thought, whew, that was kind of a close call. And I did have a backup something in my glove compartment, but just keep that in mind if you're going to wear this. You know, how soon before you put this on, you know, have you just recently put on any moisturizer? So you might want to think about that and plan appropriately. The other thing I've decided to refine my recommendation on is I talked about the sizing. So they had sent me a whole pack of smalls, and then they sent me a couple of larges, and I found that the large was just better. I have sort of a longer face, but not really. I'm still a pretty small, you know, pretty petite person. And, you know, while these smalls work and I am going to use them up, I'm just going to say that unless you are tiny, There's no real drawback to getting the large one. You'll end up with a little more fabric here, after you've got it stuck down. But I would rather have that than have the thing be a little bit too small or confining. When I put the small on, it's really not all the way under my chin. It's stuck right here. Now this morning when I had that moisturizer on, that might have been a better option because this area had been powdered. But I think going forward, I'm just going to purchase the large because it'll fit my husband, it'll fit me, and there's just no worries about it. You can always like make something a little smaller depending on how you contort it, but the small is fine, but I think that it's just more ideally suited for people who have very small faces in length, not so much the width. I think it's the length that you have to think about with this. And then finally, I had somebody say that they thought that this was not nearly as good as something that called the Envo respirator. And, I've looked at a lot of these different respirators and masks, and I've talked about how I've got to be kind of picky what I'll review. Sometimes manufacturers send me things like in this case, and sometimes viewers reach out to various retailers or manufacturers and send them to my channel and ask them to contact me. And, that's worked out really nicely. And by the way, I contact them myself sometimes too. I'm certainly not above doing that. It seems to work a little more effectively when viewers do it. I just think that's more impressive or more persuasive to anybody who's in a decision-making role about where they're sending their stuff. But, there are a lot of things that I decide not to review. And so and anything I can just like knock off the list right away by looking at it, that's certainly a lot better for everybody. And that list is very long, right? There's very few things that have met my criteria. So I went and looked at the Envo respirator, and what I found is that it's really apples and oranges. It's not like this. So just to clarify, I wasn't saying that this is better or worse than the Envo respirator. First of all, I saw a lot of utility in this particular product, namely things where you can't have anything around your ears or your head, like a haircut. I mean, having it around the ears is like okay with a haircut, but this is like ideal for getting a haircut. I've had people ask me, what do I do about getting a haircut for over a year now? And I haven't had a good answer until now. This is like fantastic. And other things like that, I just think this was so unique that it fills a niche that maybe you can't fill somewhere else. I'm not saying this is the right product to wear everywhere all day. I've grown to see masks as kind of like shoes. Anybody out there who has like one pair of shoes that they wear for everything? No, you wouldn't work out in the same kind of shoes that you go to an evening gown attire party with, or that you'd go to work with. There's all different kinds of shoes for all different kinds of things. And while there are some shoes that are multi-purpose, they can only be so multi. So same thing with masks and respirators. So I wasn't saying, nor am I ever saying that when I find something that this is what replaces everything and this is the best one. I don't even think there is a best mask or a best respirator. It just depends on all sorts of prevailing circumstances, the shape of your face or how you wear it and all kinds of things. So back to the Envo, one of the broad categories that I ruled out when it came to evaluating and reviewing masks and respirators too, for that matter, is things that use these reusable filters. So you're constantly throwing out the filters. And with the Envo, that is that. Now, I know that this is single use as well, and you throw this away, but with some of these where, especially the ones like that one that says, well, this is only meant for this product and this product is only meant for this filter, then, my feeling is you can invest in this whole system and then, that company goes under, they stop producing this product. The other thing is it always makes it really hard to determine, like, when am I really done with this filter? Like, when do I need to replace it? How long is it good for? Suffice it to say that that's just a whole other kind of product, and it's apples and oranges. So I really wasn't saying that this is better than or not as good as the Envo respirator or anything else for that matter, but that's just the one that came up that somebody was comparing this to in the Facebook group. They're very different products. And please just keep that in mind when I do any video review on a product. There's always some comparison that has to go on in your head, but it's impossible for me to look at and evaluate every single thing that's out there. So I do feel the need to choose carefully what I'll pick up. That said, more than one person really did not like the aesthetics of this. I agree. If I were looking for something really cute, this wouldn't be it. But I just feel like this has such a great potential to be a niche product, and it seals so well, and it's just sort of carefree once you have it sealed on, that I just think that this is going to be an irreplaceable part of my mask wardrobe. Is it going to replace all the others? No. Am I going to wear this every time I have a 3-minute something or another and then risk like drying out the adhesive and having to throw it out at this price point? Even with the fantastic discount that they gave us a 40% discount. So I'm going to put that code right here. But, you know, no, the answer to that is no. But, oh my goodness, when I have to go, like I said, to get a haircut, when I have to go get a mammogram, when I have to go into a health facility or something, the seal on this is just unmatched. I think I'm going to be very likely to be wearing something like this, especially, you know, that actually came up a question in the Facebook group page recently about what do you do about a mammogram? Well, this, I hadn't even known about this yet. I hadn't done a review on it yet, but because when you're doing a mammogram, they often have you look this way, look that way, you're moving around, and there's kind of a concern about moving your mask or your respirator. This is a good answer. That's my opinion. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm not due until like early winter, I guess. So I'll let you guys know. Yes, okay, that's my follow-up. I just felt there was enough in the way of QA comments, feedback, and things about the Readimask that I thought it warranted a follow-up video. So please, I hope that for those of you who have taken advantage of the coupon code and decided to try this, please let other people know, either in the comment section in the video on YouTube or over in the Facebook group page, preferably both, but let people know what your experience is like. I think this product is very promising. So I'd like to know what you guys have to say about it, having worn it, not having just seen it. And let me know how that goes. And until next time, be well. Bye-bye.